Welcome to Principling in Place, Season 2, New NAESP Centers and Fellows. Joining us tonight is Dr. Gracie Branch, NAESP's Associate Executive Director of Professional Learning, and Dr. Andy Jack, Senior NAESP Fellow.
Thank you, Katie, and good evening, everyone. We are so excited that you are here for our Women in Leadership Center to tell all about what they're doing. And we even have, I think, some special guests tonight that they pulled in. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Andy Jacks.
All right, thank you, Gracie. Welcome, everybody. It's cool on our end because, hey, Mina, I see you. So what's cool on our end, I got to bring up my chat. Just, hey, FYI, while we're getting ready, I know those of you that are regulars, you know the chat box. Make sure you see the chat box. If you're a panelist, make sure that whenever you make a chat, it goes to all panelists and attendees. Otherwise, it just comes to us. So, hey, D'Amica, I see you. Hey, Rachel, there she is from Oregon. That's what's cool about NAESP. You get people from all over the world in here. And so not just as panelists, but in the chat box as well. Hey, Mary, there she is. Mary's bringing it. Let's go, Mary. All right. So as we're gonna have a big crowd tonight. So as people are coming on, we're gonna just remind you what we're all about. And then I'll introduce our amazing guest tonight. Navita, all right. Where's from Pakistan? This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. Massachusetts. We got Deborah, we have Sue, Gina. Oh, there's a Colton. I see someone from Colton. There we go. There you go. Some representing right there. All right. Janelle, Zandra. Oh, this is what I'm talking about. It's already going. It's all right. Where are you from? I love seeing where people are from. What do you do? Where are you from? What are you passionate about? What's exciting you tonight? I'm excited to be here because tonight we're going to talk about women in leadership. This is such an important topic. I have 2 daughters. I have 3 kids and I have 2 daughters. And I hope that they turn out like these amazing leaders because just what great role models they have to look up to. And you're paving the way for future generations. So NAESP is all about current and future leaders. So we're always trying to grow leaders, looking for aspiring leaders. As you can see on the screen, we are intensely focused on creating sort of branches of different leadership areas, in this case, different centers for advancing leadership. And tonight we'll be talking about the Center for Women in Leadership. And we'll have Jessica Gomez and Andrea Thompson sharing what they feel are some pretty important tips. And I know they have some special guests. So hit the next slide. Remember the purpose for this series, if you're new, this is all about you. This is about connecting. It's about sharing. We want to share like real professional knowledge, skills. We want to grow. We want to learn because at the end of the day, we want to be better for kids. That's what this is all about. Be better for our schools, be better for each other because part of an association, not just being in an association, but like a real association, connection, network, is being better for each other, that we're always better together. We can achieve more and actually be like better people if we're connected and we help each other grow. So thank you for joining, and we're going to get right to it. Big shout out to all those principals, all the school leaders out there. This is National Principals Month. If you didn't know that, it is National Principals Month. We know we get a month, but it goes by quick, especially this year. And I love this quote. Success is liking yourself, liking what you do, and liking how you do it. And that's something to think about. And if you feel like, I don't know if I'm doing it the right way, and so I'm going to come on here to learn how to do it the right way, I'm telling you right now, there is no right way. The right way is how you're doing it to the best of your ability. That's the most important thing. So own your own personality and what you bring to the table because that is so vitally important, that be your authentic and genuine self. So thank you for being you, not trying to be somebody else. Be yourself, be the best version of you every single day. And so part of our weekly series is that we have challenge winners. And last week's winners are 2 friends of mine, although you're all friends of mine, so we're all friends now. But in this case, I know very detailed information about these 2 ladies, and they're both phenomenal school leaders. So big shout out. Liz, I see you in here. Liz. So, and I know Dr. Franks is watching. Dr. Franks is always texting me. He's saying, give prizes out. So these 2 ladies get some NAESP swag coming your way. So Liz Garden, Principal, Massachusetts. If you haven't checked out her blog post, she did a blog post where she connects with her staff, and it's like full of like motivational stuff, videos. You know, it's not just, I could tell when she's trying to communicate to her staff, it's not just about, facts or the to-do list. It's about inspiration and motivation. That's what she's trying to push to her staff. I can see that right there. Thank you. You're a winner in general, but definitely this week, Liz. Congratulations. And Sue Danielson, man, Sue, what can I say about Sue? So Sue went out of her way this last week with one of her colleagues, Carrie Webb, another one of our colleagues, and she went around to all the principals in our area and handed us a goodie bag with all sorts of motivational things, candy and stuff. And one of the things she gave us was this right there, a stress ball, because we definitely have stress going on. So Sue, you're an amazing person. I've learned so much from you, and congratulations for you as well. Congratulations, Sue and Liz. So let's get right to it tonight. Looks like we have a lot of guests in because it's such an important topic. So we have Dr. Andrea Thompson in Prince George's County in Maryland. So Maryland, I'm in Virginia, so not too far away from me over here in Maryland, the other side of the Beltway, right? And we have Jessica Gomez from the exact opposite side of the country, East Coast, West Coast connection. Jessica is in Colton, California. So Andrea, Jessica, tell me what is going to go on tonight. What's going on with you guys? I've already said that I need to learn, so I'm already learning tips. If you look already, I'm the one person out of the room. So I had to make a new virtual background to look a little bit better, because what you're already seeing is they pay attention to details. Look at their background. They have the most amazing backgrounds, the fireplace and everything. So ladies, how did you, attention to detail is phenomenal. Do you take a class in that? Or you just, can you teach me how to do that? Because that's what I want to know. How do I pay attention to that kind of level of detail?
Well, first, Andy, you have to pay attention to wanting to pay attention to detail. So that's a start right there.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But I think that's just a natural God-given talent that females have, is attention to detail and purposeful, right? Purposeful.
So I need to get my daughters to teach me, I think, is what it is. Yeah.
But hey, look at your background. That's not the background you had.
I see. I switched because of you. I switched over. Right. So welcome. I'm so glad you're on tonight. So please share with us what the Center for Women in Leadership is all about, where you're at with it right now. I know this is a journey. I know it's evolving. Things are going to happen. Amazing things have already happened. I know the network for your group is just exploding, which shows the interest. So teach me. I'm here to learn, and tell me what you're all about.
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's here tonight supporting, and to Gracie for this opportunity, to NASP, to Dr. Franks for just this is just an honor to be able to be a co-fellow with Andrea and leading and creating this new Center for Women in Leadership. I think that we see a big turnout because we need it. This is our time. This is the time. There's no better time than now to provide that support for our women leaders from across the country, across the globe. And what better way to create a unique center that's going to focus just on that? Because women face very unique challenges as women leaders. We face unique challenges that our male counterparts may not face, and it's important to point those out because it's a real thing. I mean, it's a real thing. And
point something out on that, because I just say it's so relevant to what you're saying. Is I was looking for that quote. I was looking for a quote on leadership by women, and I literally Googled in women leadership quotes, and it was hard to find stuff compared to all the men quotes.
Yeah.
That's real, and that just shows, my own bias, that something as simple as that, you don't see that published out there in the same way.
Yeah, and then especially in education, when you think about how many female educators there are, and as you start moving up the ranks and start getting into positions that are, at district levels positions, superintendent positions, a lot of women get passed up for various reasons, but there's very specific to women that just men don't really think about because it doesn't really happen to them. And so our goal is that we're able to identify what those gender biases are and how can we overcome those? How can we support one another so that we can uplift one another and break that? Because there's so many amazing female leaders that just don't get the opportunity to show how amazing they are for whatever reason. And we've come a long way, but we still have a long, long way to go. And one of the big goals that we want to make sure that we bring to everyone is creating a network of female leaders, because there's nothing like having your sisters next to you, encouraging you when you have a rough day. Or, I just had a dear friend who got passed up for a promotion, like literally just got passed up. And she was more than capable to, she's been doing the job of some of her male counterparts, and she got passed up. And so you start to wonder, like, why is that? And that's not okay. So that's what we're going to be focusing on. We're going to be focusing on, you'll be seeing some publications. We'll have some future webinars. So it's going to be great. And this is a great segment for Andrea to share. What are those focus areas going to be?
Okay, this center, first of all, I want to thank you all for being here with us. And please understand that this center is developed just for you, because we're going to make sure that we hear your voices. We want your voices. So everything that we've planned has been planned around networking, communicating, professional learning. So right across the nation, all NAESP zones, we will be developing sisterhood circles, and we'll talk more about that. And then you will showcase your activities. So, which means that we're going to have Twitter chats and all of that. Most of all, we're having a book study group, one national book study group that's comprised of subgroups everywhere. So if you would like to lead a book study group, I need you to put that information in the chat, that you will lead a book study group in your area. Just put your name, put your information in the chat. Leading Sister Circles, put your name, your information in the chat so we could reach out to you, because tonight we're going to let you know the book that we selected for your center, and you're going to meet the authors. And we're also publishing in the Principal magazine. Of course, there's a section for women in leadership, so look out for those articles, and let me hear your voices. We want to put that in there too, and also in the newsletter. There is national survey coming out, because we want to know your concerns. And also we will have webinars. You'll get an opportunity to sign up for those webinars. And the big one, we want to see you in Chicago in July, NAESP. We are having several sessions for women. So I need you to sign up to come on out and just to make it happen. So at this time, let us move into the icebreaker. Get your happy fingers ready, because here's what I'm asking. What gender-related challenges do women in leadership face as they strive to advance in the organization? For males, I want to thank you so much for coming, because we want to hear what our male counterparts have to say. So if you're a male, put that there. We need to know your gender. What gender-related challenges do you believe that women in leadership face as they strive to advance in the organization? Andy, how is it looking?
Yeah, we got, to say, I need your voice, men. Expectations are greater.
Yep.
Ayana saying that. Belinda, being perceived as pushy when you're just making decisions, right? Like that, like how do people perceive you whenever you're like challenging people and leading? Like how does leading look, for men versus women, and that sort of perception there? Overly aggressive kind of look, or seen as bossy, or Kimberly said something, advancing a roadblock, being strong.
Oh, look at that one. Being the only woman in the room and having to find that courage to be brave and speak up. That's not easy.
Right.
Oh, I did that when I was in college, and I was the only female in the industrial arts program. I loved it.
Lindsay, a good one. Mistaking passion for being overly emotional, right? Because emotion is part of leadership too, right? Like that passion, that core belief that the whole thing exuding from you is part of leadership, but how people perceive that with a woman versus a man can be much different, right?
Absolutely. And these are all, I mean, obviously loud and clear, right? These are what we're facing as women. And this just goes to show why the center is so important to have.
Mhm.
Unequal pay.
Mm.
This day and age, unequal pay.
Mm.
Okay.
I think about when you're negotiating contracts, especially as you move up, when
There
you
go.
start getting into the negotiating contract part of being a superintendent, assistant superintendents,
Oh,
that's a real thing too.
wow. And double biases against women of color. That's so true.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Okay, so let's move on to the next thing. At this time, Jessica, tell the audience why it is necessary to have a center just for us.
Well, I think, right, I probably don't have to say much to this. Our audience is literally speaking to, we're preaching to the choir here, right? Our audience is telling us why. This is why. If you start, you read the comments, again, the negotiations, and but really, we think about, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, thinking about how many women are teachers. Just think about your own schools. Think about your own experiences in whatever position that you're in. We have so many women teachers, which is amazing. But how many of us are actually moving up the ranks? How many of us are in positions where we're making those big decisions that are affecting hundreds and thousands and millions of kids and educators? It's getting better, but we have a long way to go. And so the higher up in the profession we go, the percentage of female leaders is significantly less. And understanding why that is, I think as women, we get it. We know why that is, right? We've experienced it, or if we haven't experienced it, we have a friend that has experienced it. We probably all know somebody who has experienced it. And so this is why. This is our why. And just seen all these comments from all these amazing attendees here, our female leaders, and it's just, it touches my heart, because that reminds me of my why too, like why I'm here, why we put in the extra time, why are we spending an evening after work having this conversation, because it's needed.
All right, let's move on into that poll. So, what do you feel is the biggest contributing factor to the fact that while substantial percentage of women are teachers, this percentage is not reflected at the upper echelon? Why is it? We've given you 4 choices. I'm quite sure you have a lot that you would say. Take it over, Andy.
Up, you're on mute, Andy.
Oh, I know. I got it. I know. We were joking about that today. People love to point that out if you're like split second. So these are tough ones. First one is women are held to higher standards than their male counterparts. Schools, districts, inequitable hiring practices. Hiring gets into so many different issues, right? I mean, bias and all these things, and people tend to hire people like them, right? So typically, if you're a guy, you're going to maybe hire more guys like that. Is that a thing? Do you guys think that that's a thing that you see out there? I could see that. Lack of mentors, sponsors, lack of opportunities for leadership development, and that could be much different depending where you are. That's sort of a question I have at some point here for you ladies is do you think that this is different depending on location in the country and the world, like opportunities and development and things like that?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm sure. Well, we were having a discussion just earlier, right, about just the associations, being part of an association, and some districts pay for all the principals to be part of the association fees, and then some districts no, you just pay. You're responsible if you want to be part of your state association, you pay for that. So,
and while we're talking about that, since we're live right now, a big shout out, because advocating for association it is completely worth the money. If you're a school leader, district leader out there, please advocate pay for school leaders to be part of associations. For the minimum amount of money that it does cost, you get so much in return for the leadership development, the connections, the networking as part of that. So it's definitely worth that investment. Wow. So here we go. Here's the ratings. So we have number 1, 33% lack of mentors and or sponsors for women. That's what most people thought, but pretty close behind that was women are held to higher standards than their male counterparts. So those look like the 2 biggest top ones there. Did that surprise you, or is that what you guys thought?
No, that doesn't surprise me at all. In fact, yeah, if you look in the chat, Jenna, she said 76% of teachers are female, but only 24% of superintendents are female.
Mhm,
Just think about that, right? Just think about that percentage.
mhm.
That's, yeah, absolutely. And so why is that? So that who do we have to look up to? If we're lucky, we have somebody to look up to, but we don't have, with 24% spread across the country, the likelihood of you having a female superintendent is pretty slim.
Now, the results of this, the results of the poll, there's implication for what school districts should be focusing on. And I do believe that this poll, the results of this poll should be shared with superintendents. Okay, so let's move on to our next slide. Here we have, okay, so we're going to touch on, and I mean touch on because we're going to write about this in the Principal magazine, in an e-newsletter, on Twitter chat, in webinars. These gender-related challenges, imposter syndrome, implicit biases that people have about female leaders, and implicit biases that we as female leaders have about our own female leaders. And we'll talk about intersectionality, which is kind of a new word for some people. So let's move right in and talk about this. So the next slide, imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome. I want you to think about a time when you felt like you were just winging it, and they're going to find out that you really don't know what you're doing, or you feel, or you're being complimented for doing really well, and you keep dismissing that accomplishment. There's always that fear and that doubt and that shame that you're going to be found out as, for example, let's say you just got your doctorate degree, and you're finding it difficult, people calling you Dr. Smith. You're hiding behind, you feel as though, oh, I don't want to claim it because someone is going to find out that I'm not really up to that par. You know, that's imposter syndrome, feeling as though you're an imposter,
Well,
right?
Andrea, can I just share, right, the idea of, I think it was you who shared it with me, that I don't know if it happened to somebody you knew, but they had gotten their doctorate degree, and this female leader got the doctorate degree, and I know somebody at the district office says, oh, but I'm not going to call you doctor, like, you know, but I'm not going to call you doctor.
Exactly.
You don't expect me to call you doctor, right? Like,
like you get your doctorate degree and people say to you, okay, so you finish your doctorate, so what do I call you now? Really? You know, so whenever there's a gap between what others perceive you to be and what you perceive yourself to be. So there's an article coming out around about January on imposter syndrome. So really for you to feel about how, you know, you're trying to pass off as something you're not. You're in a male-dominated role. Like I remember for about 10 years in my career, I was a vocational teacher. Yeah, I was right there with those guys teaching building construction. Yes, yes, yes. And I enjoyed every moment of it, and I would not let anyone tell me that I did not belong because I am female. So, but society can tell you who you are supposed to be with all these biases, gender-related biases, like, you know, you get real cautious on your job as a school administrator because I can't afford to speak loudly. They're going to say I'm too bossy, I'm too aggressive. So, you know, all those feelings that you're going through, imposter feelings. And the biggest one, everybody believes that females should not be high school principals. So you're a female, now you're a high school principal. That's all in the research. So you're a high school principal now, and you are suffering from imposter syndrome because you know they're looking at you as though you should not be there. That's really not your role, but you will get all the tips as to how to go about addressing those. Let's go to our next slide. Jessica, talk to us about implicit biases that people have and how how those are derived.
Absolutely. So implicit bias, right? Again, we're just touching on these really quickly. I mean, we can have a whole webinar on each of these, right? They're so deep and they're so important. And imposter syndrome and implicit biases are probably not very new to all of us, but it's important that we point those out. So when we're talking about implicit biases, we're talking about those stereotypical and prejudicial, those labels that we get that drive our actions, our policies, that drive decisions. And something about implicit bias, though, is that it really resides deep in our subconscious.
Yes.
It's so deep that sometimes we don't even realize that it's happening, right? And that it happens from females to men. And the myth sometimes is that it's always negative, that it's always that only the males are implicitly biased about females. Sometimes the sad part is female to female.
Yes.
Sometimes you see the most, it's even sad to say, right? You see the most pushback and challenge from female to female, and for whatever reason that is. And so that's something that we also are going to be talking about at some point throughout the year, why that is and how to be careful about that. And these biases are also developed, right? So we think about our experiences, our culture, our belief system, that's rooted from somewhere, right? Somehow we got to the point where, maybe I didn't grow up in a family that thought that I could become a doctor, a principal, a superintendent. Like, those were not conversations we had at my house, right? I had to beg my parents to let me go to the university. Because in Latino families, letting you go away at 18, like, what do you mean you're leaving the house? You're not married. Okay. So, I mean, can you imagine, right? So that starts to develop some implicit biases on our own, and what our lens is when we see the world, and how they're manifested can be a scary thing. Because if we don't check that, right? If we don't check what our biases are based on our experiences and our culture and our belief systems, those thoughts that are really deeply rooted in our subconscious can then manifest itself into actions and to becoming something that we don't want them to become, right? And so we want to make sure that we think about that, and that we are capable. We talk to ourselves, right? We are capable. We are qualified. We do belong at the table. We have a seat at the table. And if we don't, then we're going to find a way. You know what? I can't remember who told me this, but we're going to just pull out our folding chair, right? Yes. We're going to pull out our folding chair. And we're going to go ahead and scoot ourselves up to the table, because we deserve to be there. And yes, Mina, I love that. Let's make our own table.
Yes.
And that's where we're going to be talking about our sister circles and our sister, because that is a strong table, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah. All right. So, implicit biases drive the way we lead. So think about who your leader is and the implicit biases that drives the policies that are created. So you really have to look at that. But then how do we get beyond our implicit biases? And I must say that explicit bias is that statement, like someone will say, I don't pay attention. I don't see color. But, I'm not biased against women. I have several women here. But then when you look at some policies, they're very gender biased policies. So one of the ways to get through implicit biases is to become culturally competent. So that's when you would get in that yellow and green section, that yellow and green. When differences are ignored, treat everyone the same, only meet needs of dominant groups, get away from cultural bias, blindness, move into cultural pre-competence, move along that continuum. So that is how you get over implicit biases, becoming culturally proficient. Next slide. Okay, here's a big one, intersectionality. So look at me now. Gender, all the areas, all the social identities by which we are marginalized. Okay, so I am marginalized because I'm female, but wow, my race So now I'm doubly marginalized. Female, race. Oh, and God forbid that I have an accent that is not the dominant accent. Wow. Then xenophobia comes in because, wow, you were not born on this soil? Oh, you're marginalized. How dare you? So it's that intersection of all the areas by which you can be marginalized: sexuality, female, race, sexuality, class. You don't speak the language. Oh my goodness. You wonder if you could really get a job if all of these intersect and you're marginalized for them. But there are ways to address those. And one of the ways, I picked up this book called Building a Winning Team, written by 3 men, Dr. Vari, Dr. Thomas, and Dr. Jones. And they talked about how school systems should value the inherent diversity. Remember, there are 2 types of diversities. And look it up. There's a research out there on 2D diversities. You have inherent diversities and you have acquired diversities. The inherent diversity is what's here, what you're being marginalized for, the inherent. You have nothing to do with that. But when you can value that diversity and make it work for you in the school system, and that's a great book that I highly recommend. On the other hand, we have this other book, Leading While Female, written by 3 dynamic women who talk about how to address intersectionality through cultural proficiency. Let's move on to the next slide. And here it is. It's really time for a drum roll. I am so excited to present to you the book that the Center for Women in Leadership has selected for the entire nation of women in leadership. Leading While Female. No, it's not Driving While Black. It's Leading While Female. And these are the 3 authors, and we have them here with us today. So I want you to set up your book clubs because these women are going to join you in your book club. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome.
Welcome on, welcome.
All right, Dr. Stanley, Dr. Lindsay, Dr. Trudy Arriaga. Pardon me if I'm not calling your name correctly. Welcome, ladies. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So we're going to ask you some pointed questions that I'm sure that our participants want to hear. First of all, I'm going to go in alphabetical order. I'm going to start with Dolores. Dolores, as women in leadership, in what ways can we move forward in our search for gender equity?
Oh, thank you, Andrea, for having us this evening. How exciting this is. Moving forward has been a slow process over the years, and we can't do it all in one book study session, but we have to move now. We've waited, and there have been barriers in our way. When you mentioned cultural proficiency, everything on the left side of that continuum represent those barriers. And a lot of the barriers, Jessica mentioned other women, but mostly it's the structures, it's the policies and the practices that have been in place that serve as those barriers. And we really have to look and find ways that we can examine those current barriers, those current systems. It's called systemic racism and systemic sexism. They've been in place for so long, and that's what caused that bit of data you mentioned earlier. The pipeline to get to the superintendency should be women. It's full of women teachers all the way through to that first level. And then at the elementary level, there are many more female principals. And then we see there are not so many female directors or female assistant superintendents, and fewer, as we see, fewer superintendents. So we have to change the system so that we give voice to girls, women of color, so that they can see themselves in the system. when we look at our textbooks in our classrooms, do girls and girls of color see themselves as women leaders? So we have to start early. It's a generational thing. So we have to make sure that our daughters and granddaughters can see themselves. We have to, more than imagine, we have to start tearing down that current system. And we have to do this together, because the implicit bias, the outcome of that implicit bias is the same thing as explicit bias. The hurt and the harm is there. So we have to break through those barriers, break them down, and look and examine and know the strengths and the assets that women bring to our organizations and our school districts. And we have to rely on men, because the organizational leaders are made up of men. So we rely on them to be our sponsors. They have to be willing to, in organizational sessions, it's okay, it's very usual for them to support women when women are in the room, but do they support women when there's no women in the room? So that's what mentoring is about. It's mentoring women into the system, but it's mentoring up the system. So that's what's going to bring our future of gender equity. Is it takes us all working together, and we can do it, but we have to do it right now.
All right. Thank you so much, Dolores. And remember, if you have a book club, which we're encouraging you to do, start your book clubs. These women are available. Dolores is available to talk with you on this. Let's go on now over to Trudy. Trudy, given the disproportionality in that there are fewer women in the upper echelon of leadership than there are in the teacher workforce, how can we be intentional about ensuring that females are equally included and elevated from one level to the other?
Yes, thank you for the question. Let me ask the question first. Is my video on? Can you all see me?
Yes.
Okay, I couldn't see Dolores, so I was wanting to make sure mine was on. Well, first off, thank you so much. And what a pleasure to be here with all of you, really a privilege to be here. And so the intentionality as a former superintendent, and I became a superintendent in the year 2000, and I served for 14 years in the same school district.
Trudy, I don't want to, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm so sorry. I don't know that we can see your video, actually. I know someone else said it in the thing. Can you guys see Trudy? I want to make sure you guys.
I see her, but okay. She came off.
Yeah.
No, everyone's saying no.
No, come back.
There
on.
she is. There she is.
Okay.
Hey.
I knew something was going on because I couldn't see Dolores, but my video said that I had stopped. Anyways, you can see me now.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to start over and say thank you so much for having us, and what a privilege it is to be here. But the intentionality of making certain that female leaders, women in leadership, are able to move forward within an organization is complex, and it really takes all of us. And I started my superintendency in the year 2000, and in the year 2000, 14% of the superintendents in this nation were females, 14%. And so my very first conference as a superintendent, I walked in to register, so excited, and a female at the registration desk looked at me and said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. The teacher conference is across the street. You're in the wrong place." And I said, "Well, actually, I think I'm in the right place. I'm a superintendent." "Oh, forgive me. I just assumed." So in the year 2000, we were still assuming, we were still predicting who the superintendent was going to be. In the year 2020, we're still doing it. We've climbed a little, and then I walked into that room of superintendents, and lo and behold, there were 100 superintendents in the room, all sitting at tables of 8. I could not sit by a female superintendent to save my soul because there were so few of us in the room. So then I sat down, and the gentleman sitting next to me looked at me quizzically, almost like, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "Oh, you must be the superintendent of a very small school district. You must be a principal superintendent." And I said, "Well, we have 18,000 students, and no, I'm a full superintendent." And I then looked at him and said, and how big is yours? And no pun intended, but the reality of it is really, you know, you're going to assume size by just looking at me, and you're going to assume whether I belong or I don't belong. So that was the year 2000. So let me just take you to where we are right now. In the year 2020, 24% of the superintendents in this nation are female, but yet, as was mentioned earlier, I think by Jessica, but yet 77% of the teachers in this nation are female. How is it possible that we go from 77% as the worker bees, the educators, the people who know how to teach children, but yet only 24% of us get into being able to actually lead a school district? And I also just want to point out, because I think it's fascinating data, as we looked at the data as we wrote Leading While Female, we inched up year after year after year. When I was a high school student in the 70s, 1% of the superintendents in this nation were female. I could not find a female superintendent to model after as a high school student, to save my soul. That was obviously not in the cards for me. But isn't it interesting that in the year 2015, we were at 27%. So our research found that this is the first time in history that we are backsliding. And I don't know about you, but you know, my opinion on that one is not on my watch. Not on my watch are my daughters and my granddaughters going to be in a place in history where we are backsliding. And so there were so many reasons that the three of us sat down at the Lindsay table and wrote this book. But I just want to say the intentionality, you've covered so much of it, and I really have appreciated just hearing the depth of, you know, your very brief conversations that you've already covered. But certainly there is intentionality in mentoring each other. And as women, we need to make sure we're mentoring each other. To be our own worst enemies is really shameful. We should be the ones who are saying, I am not pleased to be one of 8 superintendents in a room of 100. That does not make me feel proud. That does not make me feel special or extraordinary. It makes me worried. And so I need to get out of that room and pull up the next person and pull up the next person. And perhaps that's tapping someone on the shoulder and saying, Jessica, I think you'd be a great superintendent. Sometimes that's all it takes, is for one of us to just say to the other, you would be fantastic. And I actually have some influence. I have some personal power, and I'm going to use that influence that I have to assist you as we pull each other up. The next one I just want to talk so briefly is our HR policies. We looked critically at HR policies. So from advertising, where we advertise, how we advertise, what the description of the job looks like, who's actually on the panel, who does the paper screening, what are the actual questions that we are being asked, what are the barriers to even getting into the finals. And we found that again and again and again, we were able to discover that there needs to be intentionality in the HR department to be able to ensure that each and every one of us has an opportunity to apply for jobs. And I'm not just talking about getting a seat at the table, I'm talking about getting a voice at the table. We want to be in positions where we have decision-making power, where we have voices at the table. And I don't know about you, but I'm not afraid to eat alone. And so, you know, I'm also, you know, if I need to have my own table, but we want to make sure that there is a voice at the table. And then the last intentionality I want to talk about is confidence versus competence. We found that women are very competent. We are the majority of the students in doctoral programs. We're the majority of the students in ed leadership programs. We are very competent, but we lack confidence. We say things like, oh, I don't know that, I'm not that great with budgets, so maybe I shouldn't. Or, oh, I should probably sit in the director's seat before I try for the assistant super, or maybe a couple more years, and I'm just not sure I'm ready. When we absolutely are competent. Men, on the other hand, lack competence, but have confidence. And I don't mean to say that disparaging. You know, I don't mean to say that men are not competent. And sorry, Andy, you got to hear the end of this. But what I do mean to say is that a man is much more likely as a high school principal to say, sure, I'll apply for the assistant soup of HR, and what I don't know, I'll figure it out. I'll learn it. I'll network. And obviously they become competent. I'm not saying our male counterparts aren't competent, but I'm saying they're much more likely to jump because they have the confidence over the competence, and we're just the opposite. So those are just a few aspects of the intentionality that we discovered. And, we dedicated the book to our daughters and our granddaughters. All three of us have granddaughters, and all three of us have daughters. And we want them to run like champs, and to always be reminded as educators that our children are watching. And when they look up, is who they are finding predictable, or is who they are finding one of great diversity, regardless of where they're looking. So I thank you. I know I probably took a little more time than I was supposed to, but we're so thrilled to be here and to be able to meet all of you and have this conversation.
Thank you so much. You spoke to the socialization process. We've been so socialized into believing that we're supposed to go through the central office before we get to the top. Now, Stacy, to what extent is there a relationship between imposter syndrome and intersectionality?
Well, again, Dr. Thompson, I want to say thank you so much for having us. And hello, NASEP members. I am a former elementary school principal, and so my heart is here with you. So I see imposter syndrome akin to this idea of stereotype threat, which is research from Claude Steele. If you've never researched that, never read it, go ahead and research it. So too often, females, and I'm going to add especially females of color, find themselves having to battle both the barriers of low expectations of capabilities and being a woman of color. So that adds that added challenge that is there. And so what happens is this taxing environment that they're having to go through day after day, just like it leads women to question themselves, that imposter syndrome, what happens with that intersectionality with women of color is that they begin to internalize that idea of oppression, and they have a lost sense of self-confidence. That's what Trudy was talking about. Like, we have to have the confidence that we deserve. We have all of the degrees, we have all of those pieces. So what happens is when we're placed in a position to demonstrate our credibility, our extensive experience, our background, our educational background, those seeds of doubt really start to rise up, and unknowingly we give into them. And ultimately we begin to fulfill that self-fulfilling prophecy that somebody had for us. We begin to demonstrate those low expectations. Now, what's really good to know is there is a way to combat that. And Jessica started out by talking about that. She said that we have to have networks that we are connecting with folks who are going to fulfill us, who are going to speak to the very strengths that we have, who are going to lift us up, and who are going to help us to prepare and overcome the barriers. Because you're going to find out in the book, there is a tool. It isn't, the barriers isn't the tool. Overcoming the barriers is the tool. And that's what our book is going to provide folks with an opportunity to learn. So as you mentioned earlier, networks are important. And one of the things that I want to talk about is a network that everybody on here can join immediately. We started, there was such a huge interest in our text, and, just really being able to come together as a group of women. And so we started a Facebook group. And so what I'm going to invite everybody to do, I noticed that a lot of people are actually joining our Twitter accounts, and that's great because we are on Twitter all the time. We're also going to invite you to go to Facebook. We have a Facebook group. It's simple. Just research, type in Leading While Female, request to join. We are on there every day. We take turns and we're on there, and we are inviting and admitting folks to the group. What you are going to find is that support group that is going to prepare women leaders, aspiring women leaders to thrive, because that's what this is all about. So first of all, I just have to say that I want to commend NAESP. In Minnesota, I'm coming to everybody from Minnesota, and we call it NASIP in Minnesota because we take any acronym and we just put it to the phonetic sounds in Minnesota. So I want to commend you for starting this Women in Leadership Center. It is unheard of in predominant organizations, and we truly need it. You didn't just say we need more women. You said we need to create a space to ensure that women are going to be elevated to their rightful position. I'm going to give you one more statistic. In Minnesota, there are just over 1,300 superintendent's licenses that are held, that were issued. Of those 1,300, just over 1,300 licenses, more than half are held by women. Now, 24% of women nationally are superintendents. In Minnesota, although we hold 50% of those superintendents' license, we only represent 16% of the superintendents in the nation. And that is why we have to come together. We have to build that, I love that name, sisterhood, so that we can come together, learn from one another, prepare one another, lift one another up, so that when the time comes, we apply for that job, we also have the confidence. So thanks again for having us. We are just really excited to be working with you and to just join your journeys, ladies and gentlemen, but to join your journeys, ladies, in this process of moving up in any type of leadership, whether it's the principalship, whether it's director, whether it's executive director, or whether you're trying to move to that C-suite.
Okay, thank you so much. So everyone, please get your books, get on Facebook, because the 3 authors are going to be engaging with you in all your book study groups. So Jessica, talk to us about how we can build a sister circle.
Yeah, so thank you ladies for sharing such amazing inspirational words with us. I just can't wait to get into the book study with you all. So first, I came across this quote and I thought, oh, I love it. So women are going to form a chain, a greater sisterhood than the world has ever known. And when I read that, I thought to myself, oh, I can't wait. I envision this country of sisterhood circles and sister circles just springing up all over the country. And that chain that comes together across the nation is just going to be so powerful. And this is the very beginning of it. And so I'm so honored and excited to be part of this birth, right? This birth of this sisterhood. And so what I want to do is share a little bit about my experience. So I've been a part of a couple of actual, I guess what we would call sisterhood circles. One of my, the first circle that I was part of was, and I'm still a part of, is our Moms as Principals. And Liz Garden, who's here, is the one. Liz, I'll never forget, Liz Garden, and we were in a Twitter chat. She reached out to me and said, hey, we're principals, there's a few of us, we're all moms, would you like to join our group? And I said, absolutely, right? I didn't know what, and said, okay, we're gonna do it on Voxer. I'm like, what's Voxer? All right, well, I figured it out. Okay, that was the first experience. And then just recently, the most amazing thing has happened is that I have had the opportunity and the honor to be part of a 7-woman sister circle that all started with a text, one text. We had one individual who said, wait a minute, I know all these amazing women individually, I need them to know each other. So what did she do? She took that step and said, I'm going to send her a text and her a text and her a text and her a text and say, hey, do you want to be part of this circle? We all said yes, not really knowing what was going to come of it. We're like, sure, it can't hurt. Well, what has come of this circle is I've never experienced anything like it. So what you see here is, this is our sister circle. There's 7 of us. And I want to clearly identify who these individuals are, because if you think about it, we talk about mentors, needing mentors. We talk about needing those role models. It's an honor for me to be able to be connected with these ladies. So we have Pam Gildersleeve Hernandez, who is the executive director of Q Inc., which is one of the biggest ed tech organizations out in the West Coast. She was the one that connected us all, one text. And then we have Rosa, who, if you don't know Rosa, you need to meet Rosa. So Rosa, she's a director at a district. She's a consultant, she's an author, she's a speaker. I mean, she is all things equity. You need equity, you go to Rosa. She will take care of you. And then talk about mentors. We have Dr. Maria Martinez Polin, who's a superintendent who I can call on the phone and say, Maria, I'm having this issue, or how do I get to the superintendency? To have somebody a phone call away to do that in a circle of trust, I mean, that's amazing. And then you know me, well, I'm just principal, and not just a principal. I am a principal, and we have Veronica Godinez, who's another colleague, fellow principal, who is amazing, who happens to serve on the Q board. She's a board member for Q, and an amazing principal, an absolutely amazing person. And then there's Zandra. Zandra's like the life of the party, right? She's another superintendent in Northern California. Now, what are the odds of that having two superintendents in my circle? And actually, Pam used to be a superintendent, so that's three. And then, of course, there's Lynn Colon, who is a director and author way over here on the East Coast. And we connected with her. Pam knew all of us individually. And the power in that one step, sending that one text and realizing that these ladies, all of us needed to know each other, really was life-changing. So I asked my sister circle, I said, okay, so what would you say is unique to our sister circle? What makes our sister circle click? What makes it work? And these were the words that came out of the conversation. Now, let me just tell you, we text every day, all day long, all through text. All through text. We send encouraging notes. We send encouraging texts. If someone's going through something, guess what? Someone's right there to lift you up. I was doing teacher interviews. I needed interview questions that were more on the distance learning track, right? Because I had other interviews. So guess what? I text my sisters, and we ended up with 15 questions within 15 minutes. No need for a committee. We got them right there. But if you take a look at these words, empower, support, being vulnerable, we lift each other, but we also challenge each other, right? But in a very loving way. We share values. We are authentic. We celebrate one another. There is no spirit of jealousy. There is no spirit of competitiveness. It's all about lifting one another up. So you could read all of those words and say, wow, how many of us have this? Probably not many of us, but how many of us would love to have this? I think all of us would. And Veronica, she designed actually this little circle, the Sister Circle Empowering Women sticker. And one of the amazing things she did is she had us each take a little personality test. And what we found is we are so well balanced, the 7 of us, that we each bring our individual strengths, which I think also makes our sister circle just tick and flourish. And my life is different because of that. My life is and Rosa once said, this is the group I never knew I needed. And that's exactly it. We can encapsulate it. This is the group that we never knew we needed. And so I want to encourage us. And that's one of the things that we're going to work towards this year, is to help you build your sister circle, right?
Jessica, that's exactly what I was going to ask right there for Jessica and Andrew, because we're wrapping up here in a second.
Yes.
We could do like 3 sessions of this, no problem, by the way.
Yes, and we will.
There's such good stuff. So I know next we're going to talk about upcoming activities, but with creating a sister circle, with creating that network, some of what you happens sort of organically and naturally. How do you have it? It doesn't always happen like that for people. So how do you guys, at least what's like one thing you can do to get started? I ask people to put your Twitter handle in here and literally reach out to other people that are connected in the same way. Because if they're here, that means they have similar passion of you. So you know that you can do some connections right away. What are some other ways that people can connect and create their own sort of circles?
Well, I mean, just think about who you know, right? You can be that one leader, right? Think about who you know. Do you know 2 or 3 other females? And you're like, they need to know each other. Take a leap of faith. Put it out there. What's the worst they can say? No, thank you, right? But start to build. You can be that one to build those connections. And we're actually going to really work really hard at our next webinar. Actually, if you go to the next slide, it's actually coming in January. It's going to talk about that, and I am going to want to invite my sister circle to be part of that and other circles, but we're going to be talking about that because I think it's such a need. Everything, all the research we talked about, everything that we need is all encapsulated in that, and we want to help you build those sister circles.
We'll be reaching out to everyone. Put your Twitter handle on there. Put your how we could reach you. Put all your information in the chat because we're actually going to look at them and we'll be reaching out to you.
Yeah, so here's some of the things that are coming up. Andrea, do you want to share that?
Okay, well, okay, so the National Book Study, where we just kicked it off, you see what the book is. Please get your book, start your book clubs, join the Facebook. Our authors are supporting that. So get on their Facebook. They're going to take everybody in. Please join and let us know about your book club. And also the sister circles, start reaching out, send us the information. We're on Twitter, reach out to us. And also stay tuned because the survey is coming. Watch out for those Women in Leadership articles in the magazine, and the e-newsletter and Twitter chat will be coming on board pretty soon. Just keep up with us on Twitter. Keep up
Keep up with us, and you will know what's going on.
Yes. Call to action.
Okay, we want to leave you tonight with this. Start thinking about who you might want to have in your sister circle. If we could do it, if Pam could do it, not knowing what it could become, then you can do it knowing what it could become. We are an example of that. So go out there, start thinking about that, get your book, get ready for the book study, and we will make sure that we get all that information out to everyone. So follow the NAESP hashtag, the hashtag Principling in Place, and follow us on Twitter so that you can stay tuned to what we're doing. And here's a way you can connect with us.
Yes, make sure right now, my challenge to you, say something super awesome about these ladies on Twitter. Go Principling and hashtag Principling in Place. What is such a great job. Thank you for being such amazing role models, leaders for all of us, and getting this center really off and running. Thank you to our authors for being here tonight. We put your book in the chat for people to go by and get their book study going. And just hearing you speak about these things in such a short period of time, I know this is an amazing book out there, a lot of great resources for everybody. So we're running because we got Friday coming tomorrow real fast, especially on the East Coast. It happens faster than on the West Coast. You know, it's funny how it works. But thank you all so much. Gracie, what do you think? Another great session.
It was great. Thank you, Stacy, Dolores, and Trudy. It was such a privilege for you all to be here. And Andrea and Jessica, the energy that you are bringing. So come on, sisters, let's build that sisterhood and join us on our journey at NAESP.
And if you're a guy watching like me, you gotta learn, right? Because the guys have to help change the world for women, just like women have to change it for women too, right? So we all work together on this.
We're going to give you good advice on dealing with strong women leaders.
That's right. So again, thank you all for joining us tonight. What a great session. Man, what a way to end up October. Happy Halloween, everybody. Have a great night.
Bye. Stay tuned.
Bye.